Hey guys, Nightwing here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Fatal Fury City of the Wolves beta that just ended recently. Before I start talking about this beta, I kind of want to talk about my experiences with the original Mark of the Wolves, as I feel like it relates to how I feel about this beta. So I grew up with Mark of the Wolves, playing it around middle school back in 2017, and I absolutely adore this game. From its visuals to its art style, and especially its gameplay with the top system, I was enthralled the first time I played this game, especially Terry Bogard. And as somebody who never grew up playing Smash Brothers, Terry was a name that I had no idea who he was, but his awesome bomber jacket look, great haircut. I mean, come on, let's be honest. He has a great haircut. And his kind of, freewheeling, I don't care, go with the flow personality and attitude really spoke to me as a kid. So hearing that we're finally getting a beta and that City of the Wolves is finally close to release has me extremely stoked. So with that out of the way, let's talk about how I actually felt about this beta. And I'm going to go through the negatives first, as I feel like there is a lot of not so great stuff about this beta. The first one and the biggest one is matchmaking. Now, for me personally, I never had to wait too long for matches. I think the most I waited for a match was 2 minutes at max, and this was on both PC and PlayStation 4. I did notice that the PlayStation 4 version was a little bit quicker with matchmaking, but it wasn't horrendous by any means. I would usually get matches every minute or so. Now, even though matchmaking wasn't bad for me, it's not as good as Street Fighter 6. And even then, this was my experience. I've heard a lot of other people saying that they're waiting upwards of 15, even 30 minutes to get into a match. So this is something that has to get changed immediately. SNK has to start working on this pronto. Another big issue with the game is loading times in between rounds. And this is one that for me is really non-negotiable. This absolutely has to get fixed because it's not fair to a player. You're in between rounds and you're all hyped up. You're thinking about what should I do next, and then bam, this long loading time, kills all of the hype, all of the excitement, the adrenaline. So loading times definitely have to get removed in between rounds. I would also say in general, loading times are a lot longer than I expected, especially on PC. I was very surprised at how much time it would take to load a stage or to get into a match, while waiting for the loading screen. So that's something that I think SNK could 100% work on. Another big one was training mode, or the lack of a training mode. And this is one I understand. SNK doesn't want any data leaks to get out. And also, it's in SNK's best interest to have people playing online as much as possible. Because if you put a training mode out there, you're not going to get as many people playing online as you could have if you don't have a training mode. So I understand why SNK decided not to put a training mode, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. And I really do think it is going to be a detriment in the long run, because a lot of people are saying, well, how do I know if I really like this game if I can't, lab with my character? And to be honest, they have a point there. There are a couple of other somewhat smaller issues too, such as the 30 FPS background set pieces. Now, the backgrounds themselves, they move at 60 FPS, if you're, moving left to right, it wasn't choppy. The problem was the set pieces. And what do I mean by set pieces? Well, I mean stuff like the Rocks and Terry stage, or the Lillian Knights and Beat Jenny stage, or the Trees and Terry stage. All of that was moving at a frame rate that was much slower than I expected. It felt very choppy. People have been saying it's 30 frames per second, but we don't actually know for sure. But I definitely do think it has to get fixed 100%, because it's just very jarring on the eyes, especially Terry stage. In fact, I actually avoided Terry stage in most of the beta because of how jarring the set pieces were. And this issue is even further exacerbated on the PlayStation 4 version, where it felt like 15 frames a second. I'm telling you, in Terry stage, especially on PS4, stuff was moving like teleporting. It was crazy. It was like, the set pieces were like Akuma, just teleporting all over the place. So that definitely has to go. I can live with this one if they don't fix it. I can definitely live with it, but don't expect me to be playing on Terry stage a lot. But outside of that, the beta does have a lot of positives. as well, and I think the biggest one right out of the gate is the gameplay. The gameplay of this game, if I can be honest, was incredible. I had a really good time with this gameplay. And I have to be honest, I was very skeptical about how the game was going to play because, learning about the game from trailers and from what SNK was saying, from what people are saying, it became really evident really fast that this is not going to be similar to the original Mark of the Wolves in terms of mechanics. Now, granted, it does bring back all of the mechanics from Mark of the Wolves, but it does change up things such as pacing, and it does add new stuff. So it definitely feels more in line with a modern game, more so with a modern game than, Mark of the Wolves, which I personally don't mind. I know some people aren't too happy about this, but I think it's a solid idea to move away from Mark of the... Maybe not move away, I think that's a bad way of putting it, but to try something different with the gameplay of Fatal Fury. They took away the lane system in Mark of the Wolves, and now they're sort of adding, EX moves. I guess Rev Arts would be like an EX move. They're adding EX moves and stuff like that. So I think that's an interesting idea. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter how close it is to Mark of the Wolves if it isn't good. And this is what really surprised me, was that the gameplay worked incredibly well. I was very surprised at how well it worked. And I just felt like, once I learned how to do Rev Art and learning Rev Art combo, so Rev Arting into another Rev Art move, and then comboing that into a super, it felt exhilarating. I had such a good feeling after, performing such a massive combo like that. And there's so many possibilities you can do with Rev Arts as well. You can Rev Art Burning Knuckle into a Rev Art Krachu, and then do a feint shoulder into a super. You can do a Rev Art Krachu into a super, or you can do a Rev Art Power Wave into a feint into a super. It's insane the possibilities you have at your disposal, and it creates for a lot of creates a lot of player expression that you really don't see that often in modern fighting games today. So that's fantastic. Same thing with the defensive mechanics. If somebody's attacking you, you can JD it. You can do a rev block. You can just block it. You can guard cancel it. There's so many options at your disposal, and that's something that I really appreciate about Mark of the Wolves. This game is very gameplay dense. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot to learn, and I personally love that. Another great positive is the graphics and the art style. Now, as a comic book fan, I can't tell you how happy I am to wake up every day knowing that we're getting a fighting game with an art style that brings Jim Lee's work to justice. It is insane how good the art in this game is. I cannot understate how happy I am with the art style direction that they've chosen. Because unfortunately, I feel like in gaming today, if you're a developer, you only have two options when it comes to art style. You either make a super realistic game or a very anime game. So to see developers come out and do their own thing that isn't anime or realistic, but is doing something that's unique or is bringing back something, like how Bomb Rush Cyberpunk brought back cel-shaded Jet Set Radio style graphics, is great to see. So I'm really happy about the graphics and the art style. Another great thing that I thought was good about this beta was the online connection itself, like the quality of the connection. This connection was really good. I was very surprised. Even with high ping matches, it felt very smooth, like 95% of the time. I really cannot tell you how happy I am about this, because once you just open up a match and you get into a match, you forget that you even play online. It's that crazy. And that's how smooth it is, that you just kind of forget. And I was really worried because Mark of the Wolves had really easy input timings. You could do an input every 90.99 seconds, and your input would go through. And in City of the Wolves, they lowered that down. So I was worried, hey, am I going to be able to get all my inputs in? Is online going to be good enough so I can do that? And thankfully it is. And I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy that I can get all my combos, get all my inputs in. So that's a really, really nice thing. Another positive thing is character balance. I think the character balance in this game is pretty solid overall. There are some standout characters like Vots and Kane and Rock, to be sure, but it's not insane. Like every character can hold their own ground, which is something that's really nice to see in fighting games, because obviously there's no such thing as a balanced fighting game, but devs trying their best to make sure that every character has a fair shot at winning the match is important. I'm really happy to hear that. So those are my overall thoughts. I personally thought the beta was a good time. I had a pretty good time with it. I didn't have a great time, unfortunately, because there just are a bit too many negative stuff surrounding the beta that unfortunately I couldn't enjoy to its fullest potential. But I had a pretty overall good time, a positive experience overall. And I feel like this game is on a good path to release. I know some people have been saying that this game has to get delayed, that they have to fix matchmaking, and I have to disagree with that statement, because the biggest reason I disagree with that is because people forget that it's coming out in 2 months. And 2 months is 60 days. 60. Count to 60 with your fingers. That's a lot of time when you put it into that perspective. I know 2 months doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you actually count down how many days we have left to release, that's 60 days. That's a lot of time to fit stuff. And even if I don't personally believe that they'll be able to make it as good as Street Fighter 6's matchmaking, for example, I do think it will be dramatically improved to the point where anybody, maybe not anybody, but a majority of people should have a solid time. I don't really see why they should delay it unless the game is nowhere near completion, which I don't necessarily think it isn't, because all of the trailers we've been getting, all the stages look finished, all the characters look finished. There's nothing about the game or the beta that seemed unpolished, and that's something I feel like more people need to bring up about this beta, is that everything seemed very polished. There wasn't much glitching going on. There wasn't anything where I'm like, oh, this doesn't look too good. This has to get, in terms of like how it looked, this has to get, fixed a bit. There wasn't anything like that for me personally. I did have some glitches, some Unreal Engine 5 problems, but that's not really SNK's fault as far as I'm concerned. So I don't personally see why this game should get delayed. Again, that's if the game is mostly complete. If it isn't, then that's another story, and they should definitely delay this game. But outside of that, I also want to discuss how the FGC has been feeling about this game. And it's been really polarizing, because you have some content creators like the Seppi Swad, Rufelmonger, coming out saying, hey, matchmaking isn't too bad. I've been having a pretty solid time with matchmaking. So it's really interesting to see this massive dichotomy between people. I personally did a poll on the City of the Wolves Discord server, which you can go check out. And I was surprised to see that it was overwhelmingly positive. Again, it wasn't like 100 or 90% positive, but most people were saying either good or great on the answer as one of their answers. Nobody was saying meh. So I don't understand. So it's been very polarizing how the FGC has been feeling about this. But I think the people who are having issues, I'm glad that they're putting their voices out, because this game does need help. It does need work. And I feel like people talking about their experiences, either good or bad, is a great thing. So the last thing I want to end off this video with is just talking about how SNK has been reacting to this. And I think they've been doing a pretty good job. Oda recently came out saying that they're looking into things, and that there is a possibility of a second beta, which is something that I think needs to happen 100%. Because this beta definitely lost a lot of goodwill with casual players, non-FGC players, and even like non-SNK fans. This game lost a lot of goodwill with those people because of the lack of training mode, because of the somewhat, iffy matchmaking for those that had it. So having a second beta to kind of redeem themselves would go a long way for sales, and I think it is absolutely necessary that SNK does that. So without further ado, that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day, guys.